Hello, everybody. My name is Josh. Welcome to Engineering a Better Education. If your child is struggling to stay motivated at school, they dread going to school, they complain about it a lot, but you know that they're a smart kid, you've seen that they have hobbies and interests, and you know that they have a bright future ahead of them, and you want to help them get excited about their education, then you're in the right place. Because today we're going to talk about one learning secret. I call it a secret, but once we talk about it, you're going to realize that it's something very obvious, but it's something that's overlooked a lot in education. And we're going to talk about this today. It's a way to turn all that dread, the stress, into excitement and motivation for learning. So, the reason that your kid is probably disliking school is not because the work is too hard, but maybe because the end feels empty for them. We've heard the expression, when there's a will, there's a way. And I'm going to say that when there's a why, there's a way. And I'm going to start by sharing a story from my own life. I took guitar lessons from the time that I was about 8 years old until 14. And a few years into my guitar lessons, my guitar teacher wanted to teach us music theory. And at the time that didn't sound very appealing. I love playing the guitar, I love learning songs, but I was like, why do I want to pull out a notebook and do this like homework assignment in my guitar lessons? And so our guitar teacher would try to get us to bring a notebook and try to get us engaged in learning music theory, and just it did not make any sense. I didn't understand what scale degrees were. I didn't understand I knew how to play a major scale on the guitar, but I didn't understand why it was the way that it was. And I was like, I never use the major scale other than, I suppose, improvising on the guitar. But anyway, it was really hard for me. I didn't enjoy it. I feel like some of the other kids in the guitar class felt the same way. And I'm sure my guitar teacher, he was great. He probably told us why we should learn music theory, which was so we could write our own songs. But that just never clicked at the time. And then fast forward to when I was a teenager, 16, 17 years old, I continued to play the guitar, and I really wanted to write songs. I was super excited about songwriting, and I realized that I didn't really know how to write songs other than just fiddling around, dabbling, and I wanted to get better at it because sometimes I would write a guitar part, and then I was like, I need some chords that sound good with this, and I realized I needed to learn music theory. So I was kind of kicking myself in the butt for not paying attention back when my guitar teacher was teaching us music theory, but I was like, okay, I got to learn music theory, so that's what I got to do. And there was YouTube at the time, but I guess it didn't occur to me that I could find a teacher or a video on YouTube. So what I did was I went to ultimateguitar.com and read forums on music theory. So these were kind of like, they're almost like Reddit forums, people talking about music theory. There are a few kind of like blog style posts in there, and I literally just read on how to do music theory, and it was super hard. I remember seeing a bunch of Roman numerals, people talking about scale degrees, 1, 4, 5, and I was so confused. And if you've ever learned music theory, you'll probably agree with me that it's a lot easier when you have an instrument in front of you and a teacher who has an instrument, or even to watch a video with some visuals and some audio. But I just did it purely reading, and it took me weeks to even understand what the Roman numerals were. I couldn't find like a simple blog post that explained that for a while. But after, I think it took me maybe 3 weeks, it finally started to click. I started to understand it, and I was like, wow, I think I get it. And I was able to apply it, and I did write some songs, and I enjoy writing music. But yeah, for years, my music teacher tried to teach me music theory, just couldn't understand it. And then on my own, in the matter of about 3-4 weeks, just reading forums on the internet, I learned music theory. And what was the difference between those two experiences? The difference was that something was motivating me the second time. And I think what we can learn from that is that a hard road to something you want beats an easy road to something you don't want. I think that's an important lesson in learning. And contrast this story that story that I just shared with one that my uncle told me. When he was a teenager, he also wanted to learn to play the guitar. So I guess we got a lot of guitar stories today. But he wanted to learn to play the guitar because he wanted to learn a specific song. He wanted to learn the Dukes of Hazzard theme song. So that's an older TV show, not one that I watched. It's a little before my time. But he wanted to learn the Dukes of Hazzard theme song, and he was like, I'm going to learn the guitar to do this. And he got enrolled with a guitar teacher and started to learn. And he told his guitar teacher that he wanted to learn the Dukes of Hazzard theme song. Good old boys. Yeah, probably shouldn't sing a song that I don't know. But his guitar teacher told him that song was going to be too hard and that he wasn't going to learn that for a long time. And that kind of killed his motivation. I don't know what she wanted to teach him, but it was something he wasn't interested in. He gave up playing the guitar, didn't interest him anymore, and I don't think he's playing guitar today. But that's another example where people give up sometimes because the end feels empty. Not because the work was too hard. I think if that guitar teacher had said something along the lines of, that's going to be a challenging song, but we can find a simplified version to start with, or we're going to work toward that, I think he probably would have been practicing and putting in the work, but because the thing that he wanted at the end kind of got removed, the motivation faded as well. When there's no desired destination, there's no durable drive. So got those two stories there, and then I've got a third story to share with you. This one is not my own story. This is actually shared by a religious leader that he shared publicly in a public sermon that he gave. His name's Dieter F. Uchtdorf, and I'll just read his words because he tells the story a lot better than me. But he said, "When I turned 11, we had to leave East Germany overnight because of the political orientation of my father. Now, I was going to school in West Germany, which was American occupied at that time. There in school, all children were required to learn English and not Russian. To learn Russian had been difficult, but English was impossible for me. I thought my mouth was not made for speaking English. My teacher struggled, my parents suffered, and I knew English was definitely not my language. But then something changed in my young life. Almost daily, I rode my bicycle to the airport and watched airplanes take off and land. I read, studied, and learned everything I could find about aviation. It was my greatest desire to become a pilot. I could already picture myself in the cockpit of an airliner or in a military fighter plane. I felt deep in my heart this was my thing. Then I learned that to become a pilot, I needed to speak English. Overnight, to the total surprise of everybody, it appeared as if my mouth had changed. I was able to learn English. It still took a lot of work, persistence, and patience, but I was able to learn English. Why? Because of a righteous and strong motive." And this talk that he gave was in English, obviously. So there's another powerful story that demonstrates that desire sharpens ability. So one thing that I think we're missing in our public education system is that strong motive. A lot of times, all that is pushing the kids is grades, get a good grade on an assignment, on an exam, get an A, and it's really easy for the kids to kind of get sucked into that sometimes. When you're doing well, you're getting straight A's, but there's also a lot of stress associated with that because at the end of the day, I mean, who just wants an A? People want things that are a little more meaningful than that. And so I also want to go over a framework with you today, which explains a few different learning styles. So if you're watching the video, you'll be able to see this. It's a quadrant, and on the horizontal axis, you have who is asking the question. So it's kind of a question answer format. On the vertical axis, you have who is answering the question. And we'll look at the horizontal axis first. On the left, who is asking the question, we have the teacher. And on the right, we have the students. Then if we look at our vertical axis, on the bottom, we have the teacher, and on the top, we have the student. So we have one case where the teacher's asking the question and then answering the question. This is a teaching style. Essentially, this is how learning objectives work. Essentially, learning objectives are a set of questions that the teacher is going to aim to answer, or you want the students ideally to learn. But when the teacher is just presenting those learning objectives and then they just answer all of them and say all the information, I call that lecture. Teacher asks, teacher answers. And this requires the least amount of engagement from a student. Sometimes in like video content, podcasts, this is kind of the only thing that's available. And people can learn through lecture, but it should not be the only learning style that we're using. And like I said, it's also the least engaging and in some ways the least effective. If we move to the next one, where we have the teacher, so we're still on that left side, the teacher asking the question and the student answering the question, I call this a quiz. And they're effective for checking somebody's knowledge. Obviously, this shows up a lot in our school system. We have exams, quizzes, homework assignments. Essentially, the teacher's asking a question, the student needs to answer it, either prove that they have the information or go find it. Now, if we move to the right side of this matrix and we have the student asking the question and the teacher answering it, this is the bottom right, call this mentorship. This is a little more powerful because if a student's asking a question, it means that they want to know the answer. In other words, they have a motive, like in those stories that I shared, for wanting to learn something. So this is where we're getting into a higher level of learning, where it's going to stick more with the student. They're going to feel more engaged. And that's an effective way to learn. The step beyond that, which is probably the least common one that we see, and frankly, it's more difficult to implement in a structured teaching environment, but it's where the student asks the question, the student answers the question. I call this research and discovery. This is by far the most powerful learning style. This means that the student has a motive for learning the information, and then they put in the work to figure out the answer themselves. It's not just handed to them for free, given on a platter. They research, they discover. What we need to see more of in the education systems is less lecture, less quizzes, but more mentorship and more research and discovery. The way that our system is built, with a whole bunch of students, few teachers, trying to get a lot of students through the system, there's not really time for this mentorship and there's not time for this research and discovery. So what can you do as a parent to help your child learn in this way? For a limited time, I'm offering my coaching program, which is called Design a Product People Want. And this is for students who want to turn a passion project into a real viable product using engineering skills. They essentially want to apply engineering or STEM skills to solving a meaningful real-world problem. And in this coaching program, they get 12 weeks of weekly coaching calls with me. And in these weekly coaching calls, they'll learn the design process that's used by real engineers in industry, and they will apply it to a project of their choosing. They're going to identify a problem that's meaningful to them, innovate a solution, iterate their prototypes until it solves that solution effectively, and lastly, implement business, marketing, and sales strategies to offer that solution to people in need who have the problem that they're trying to solve. So if that's something that interests you and you want to learn more about it, check out the link in the description, and that will lead you to a form that you'll be able to fill out. This will help me know if you're actually a right fit for the program. And if you are, then I'll book a discovery call with you. You can ask me your questions and we can talk more about the program. So check out the link in the description if you're interested. And otherwise, there is something you can do to help your child. And what I would suggest is find out what your child is passionate about, what interests them, what hobbies do they have, what motivates them. And you might feel like you already know the answer, and that may be true, and hopefully you do. But I would also suggest spending some time talking to your kid. Ask them what they enjoy doing. Pay attention to what they do when they're not at school on the weekends. It might seem like something that you consider unproductive. Maybe they really like playing video games, but that's great. That's something. That's an interest and a hobby that they have, and talk to them about that. Ask them about their schooling. Why don't they enjoy going? And just listen. And then what you can do, this is really cool. You can offer to give them a little startup fund. It doesn't need to be a lot. Maybe this is the money that you would have spent on hiring a tutor or enrolling them in an extracurricular activity. But offer them a little startup fund if they will agree to come up with a project where they identify a problem. First of all, thinking about the things that they're interested in. So if they're interested in video games, what's a problem that people might have? Well, there are a whole bunch of things. One could be that playing a certain game on the keyboard is more difficult than having a certain kind of controller. Or maybe the problem is just there aren't enough tower defense games out there, or there's not a tower defense game that's themed with K-pop Demon Hunters, And they identify a problem, then they innovate a solution. So going back to this tower defense game idea, their solution is, I'm going to create a tower defense game that's themed off of K-pop Demon Hunters. And then they're going to iterate their prototypes or their design until it works. So essentially, they're going to learn how to create their own video game. And this is very possible, seriously. There's never been a better age for education in all the world. You can learn whatever you want. There's ChatGPT, there's YouTube, there's coaches online everywhere. You've got access to everything. So your child could learn how to create their own video game. And then essentially they implement their solution and they need to offer it to somebody. Someone needs to go play their game. So this is how you can get them excited about learning. You give them a little bit of a startup prototyping fund that helps them feel a little more motivated and excited to start. And then they can use that money to, if they need to buy materials for their project or they want to buy a course to learn how to do something with their project, that's what they could use that money for. This can apply to anything. If you have a kid who's watching TikTok all day, TikTok dances or whatever, I don't know, maybe they're interested in fashion. And so their problem and their project could be centered on designing a certain type of clothing. And so they need a sewing machine, they need some fabric, and then YouTube or a mentor or whatever to learn the skills they need to complete that project. So that's what I invite you to do, is think about maybe why your kid is not excited about school and what they really are excited about, and then figure out how you can leverage that to get them excited about learning. And if this video was helpful to you, drop in the comments the answer to this question: what is your child excited about, and how could they turn it into an immersive learning project that challenges them intellectually? Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and hopefully you'll be hearing from me again soon.